Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Huge networking event tonight. Sports and entertainment networking. I think we got about 100 people registered. Check out winagainacademy.com. Check out any of my social media posts tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. Going to be a great night. Happy to welcome Steve Graber to the Wolff Den today. How's everything going?
Everything's great, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
I think are you registered to attend tonight?
I have a conflict, unfortunately, but I wish I could be there.
I was trying to look through my things, all these names I have, and I'm like, I think they registered. I either remember them because they were registered, or I remember them because they told me they had something else going on. Mm-hmm. Regardless, tell everybody in the audience who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into everything.
Well, thanks, Matt. My name is Steve Graber. I'm the program director for Maccabi USA, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The Maccabiah Games is coming up next summer in 2022. It's the third largest sporting event in the world. So we're working getting together the USA delegation to attend. We're going to have a delegation of over 1,200 athletes, coaches, medical, etc., for a 3-week incredible opportunity and experience.
So I always, growing up, I didn't get involved in it, although I wish I would have, especially maybe playing some hoops for it. I always think of it as the Jewish Olympics. Is that accurate? And how would you describe what goes on?
So it is very commonly referred to as the Jewish Olympics, and to a large extent it is. It is a combination of Olympics, summer camp, etc. So we get athletes who are very high level at all sports, but we also get a lot of Olympians, professional athletes at different levels, and athletes who are top tier collegiate. So we're looking for 40 plus different sports between the ages of 15 and 80. We have athletes at all backgrounds, levels, etc. And it's a really super and great competition.
So 21st games next summer, 2022, but it is every 4 years, correct?
It's every 4 years, but because of the pandemic, it got postponed a year. It was supposed to be this past summer in 2021. So that's why it's in 2022 this time around. And then moving forward, it's going to revert back to the original schedule. So the next games will be in 2025. Okay,
so 4 years, kind of like the Olympics. You have to get in there while you can. Never know when you're going to be able to qualify or be able to play again. But actually, let's talk about how do you get to qualify? What allows you to be in the games?
So for a lot of sports, we do have tryouts. We'll have over 100 athletes try out for an ice hockey team, a basketball team, a soccer team. It's very competitive. We usually have, 1 or 2 tryouts on either coast, New York, Philly, Florida, and then somewhere on the West Coast for that, and then select a team based off of the 1 or 2 tryouts. And then for sports such as tennis, track and field, swimming, we use, registered times and scores, and then select our teams through that way. So it's a combination.
And how many nations are going to be represented?
Approximately 80. But that also includes territories. So if the U.S. Virgin Islands attends, that's an independent name listed. If Gibraltar attends, that's an independent. If Jersey or another territory attends, that's the same way. So it's not essentially 80 countries; it's 80 territories.
And these are all Jewish athletes.
Correct. Every athlete and staff member that attends is Jewish to some capacity.
Okay, well, that was my next question. What capacity? Does it mean your mom is Jewish? Does it mean you've converted? The bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah? What's the qualification? What makes someone Jewish in the eyes of Maccabi?
So Maccabi World Union, who are the organizers of the event, they have their eligibility that everybody must meet at minimum. And then every territory has their own eligibility requirements as well. So I can't comment on other countries, but for the U.S., we have to have athletes and staff who identify as Jewish, whether it's 1 parent, 2 parents, a grandparent. And then if someone learns of Jewish heritage that they want to explore, we do have an eligibility committee who will decide if someone is able to participate with us or not.
But this has to be like a part of your life. It's not just, hey, I want to play in these games. I'd like to explore my Jewish, whatever. I don't know if it's 1/8 or great grandparents.
Well, during the games, we have a 1-week immersion in Israel before competitions begin called Israel Connect. And that's probably the most, commonly, said best part of the experience for everybody. It's a week of training and touring and cultural immersion and Jewish identity and Jewish learning, where you get a really in-depth connection to Israel. And then there's a 2-week competition period afterwards. So it's our goal that when the athletes and participants attend, they have a deeper connection to Israel and their Jewish values, and then can come back home and embrace it and become a better person because of it.
So from a preparation standpoint, Maccabi USA, the games are always in Israel, right?
So the Maccabiah games is every 4 years in Israel, as we talked about earlier. And then interim years, there are regional events in Europe and Latin America that are organized by their respective governing bodies.
And you guys participate in all of them?
Yeah, so we're invited guests to both of those usually. For Latin America, we usually have a full delegation of all sports invited. And then for the European games, they invite us to help round out some tournaments that need, additional countries for participation. They're both really fantastic events and great organizing committees, but nothing compares being to Israel and experiencing it with, 10,000 people.
Yeah, so we had Barry Kleiman on the show before Wolff Den, big supporter of the program. He is a coach for the games, I believe. Do you have a lot of the people who are just been around for 10, 15, 20 years? Do you get a lot of new people getting involved at that level?
Every event is different. We have an entirely different organizing committee for every event that we do, but we have fantastic, incredible, and very generous volunteers that will lead, a team or a sport. So Barry's very involved on the basketball front, and we appreciate everything he does. And same thing with a lot of other people and all the time and effort that they put in. So we do have a lot of people who return back and back again because they're experts in their field. They're invested. They do a great job and love working with them. And then, for various reasons, people can do it every couple of times or only do it once or twice. And we do have a lot of new people that get involved. So it's always good to have returners who know what they're doing and can be, mentorship for the new people, and then new chairs who come in and bring a new perspective on how they want to, form a team or organize what they're doing.
All right. So volunteer mostly. I think it's so. We talked to the Special Olympics also, and it's really heavily relying on volunteers to make this happen. And obviously, people like you, there's got to be a core group that are working full time. But is that how that works with you guys as well?
Absolutely. We are a very small staff based out of Philadelphia, as I said. I think it's about 10 or so full-time employees, and everybody else, all of our chairs, all of our coaches, all of our medical, all of our leadership, they're all volunteers.
Are you guys considered a charitable organization?
Yes, we're a 501c3.
Okay. And so when we talk about the finances of this all, how do you guys make this happen? Because it's got to be a huge, huge expense from traveling and all kinds of stuff that goes into that. Just even the travel budget has to be tremendous.
So it's a multi-million-dollar event. There's no way of getting around it. We come up with a budget based off of what we're being charged by the organizers and what they're including, and then we add on top of it airfare and apparel and other necessities that everybody needs to have. So we do charge the participants a fee depending on their position, and they can either pay that or fundraise for their participation. And then for the overall organization, there's an extensive fundraising campaign by individual donors, through grants, through foundations, and all other means combined.
What's the big event? Do you have a big event for fundraising?
Every year we have various events. So we have golf tournaments in a couple of places around the country. We have legend events where we honor people from a certain area or city. And we also have parlor meetings where donors and board members will host their friends and community in their homes to talk about the organization and do fundraising that way. And we're also doing a lot more outreach and advocacy to other groups to help us with our funding.
Yeah, it's interesting because, stereotype or not, sports and entertainment industry is run heavily by Jewish people, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say. And so if we're talking about, if it takes a couple $1 million to run this event and support the event every 4 years, you would think there'd be enough people that are high profile who would want to, help that go, and especially if they're, they're Jewish. Not all Jewish people are created the same. I have friends who are Jewish. They haven't stepped foot in a temple, gone to services. They don't fast. There's so many different levels of being Jewish. I don't judge anyone. You do whatever makes you comfortable. Me personally, I'm proud to be Jewish, and for me, it's more of a culture than it is a religion. But it's surprised that, and maybe you do have this, that you wouldn't just get people who want to help in that way.
We find people through various capacities and means to help us in many ways. We have a lot of great donors that are very generous with their time and their resources, and then they also put us in touch with their friends and their family as well. But we're always looking to connect in people from all different backgrounds and fields. A, to just increase awareness of the organization and what we do, and B, plus for potential fundraising and funding opportunities.
I think fundraising is always a struggle, right? Mm-hmm. It just always is. But there's levels of struggle too. Could it be like, yes, it's a struggle. We hustle. We have to do this, this, and this, but we're always pretty confident that we're going to get what we need. So we're not really that worried about it. Are you in that situation, or is it, look, we're struggling every year just to get where we need to go? Where are you guys closer on the spectrum?
I don't think any nonprofit organization ever says that, they're good with fundraising in the sense that, they need to stop. Like, you always need to go out and try to get, as much money as possible, because you always want to do new things. You always want to meet your goal and exceed your goals. Our organization, has a great leadership group and professional staff that takes the reins on the fundraising, and, everything every day is different. And we're always going out there looking for opportunities to help us out.
Yeah, I mean, nonprofit it's interesting. I don't know as much about it as the other person. Nonprofit doesn't mean that they don't make a profit. It just means that they don't take the profits, right? Whatever you guys generate, you put back in, which could mean you spend it on, there's all kinds of stuff you could spend on that some people might look at. And I'm not saying you guys do this. I'm just saying in general, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are spending money casually, I would say. So it's also a tough, it's tough when you're trying to raise money, you're trying to purchase stuff, to say, look, we're a little bit different than the average corporation out there and should be treated differently. And some people do, and some people don't. What's been the biggest struggle for you in the fundraising aspects? And obviously COVID is number one, but outside of COVID, what do you think is the biggest roadblock from making it so it's like, hey, look, we're never going to tell you to stop sending money, right? Yeah. I'm not saying we're never going to tell you to stop fundraising and all this, but what's the biggest roadblock to getting to where you're like, it's a well-oiled machine and it just kind of keeps going and going and going?
I think there's a perception amongst a lot of people that, think that all we do is go to Israel, play some sports, and come back, and they don't want to donate just for that. And it's a lot more than that. That's only a very small component of how we operate. So we really do it to increase, Jewish continuity, grow Jewish values, get awareness out there, have networking, have people meet each other, connect with Jewish communities around the world. And that's what we're really trying to, promote and advocate for. And getting around that perception of that it's just for, people from a certain background, a certain class is not true. So when people fully understand and realize like our mission and how we operate, then they really will open up their checkbooks and help us out. So it's really the mission is what we have to promote and strive to increase.
Yeah, the challenge in that is the easiest way to educate people is to have them attend, right? But it's not that easy to get people to say, all right, let's go to Israel. Mm-hmm. Attend these games when you're living in the U.S. So that's the easiest way to educate people. So what are some of the things you guys use to try and educate, to get people more aware of what's going on? And there's a lot of good organizations. My friend is part of an organization that brings young people. I think I'm too old for it now, but I wanted to do it. When I was young enough, I didn't have the time. And now that I have the time, I'm too old, but brings people to Israel to kind of experience very similar to the week prior to your games. Yeah.
We definitely, one of our biggest things is just getting people to go to Israel and experience it and, learn about it and, and share and grow there. We, during the pandemic, we started doing Zoom calls every so often with different figures in the sports world that would talk about their backgrounds. And if they were a participant with us, they'd share about their experience there and increase awareness and opportunities for Maccabi USA. And then outside of the games, on occasion, we've brought certain teams or sports to Israel or other places for like a mini tournament of sorts. And that also increases awareness of what's going on and what we're doing. But we're always looking to partner with different organizations if it's in each other's interests and that our mission and values align.
I've never been to Israel. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to go sometime. If I can get there for the games, even better. I know we've talked. I'd love to get involved personally and with Ticket Time Machines. So that's on my radar at some point. If not 2022, maybe 2025. Prior to you joining, how long have you been with Maccabi USA?
About since 2014.
Okay, so you've been there for a couple games. Had you been to Israel prior to joining?
Yeah, I was in Israel probably, I think, 2 times before I started working here.
Okay, and what was it like? Because they talk about it's the Holy Land, right? But it's looked upon that way as people who aren't Jewish. It's not just for Jewish people to visit, and I think that's another misconception that people have is if I'm not Jewish, why would I want to go to Israel? But talk about your experience in Israel and what makes it so special.
Yeah, like I can only talk from my experience, but it's a beautiful country. Like the scenery, the mountains, the valleys, everywhere is gorgeous. Like you're not going to find that in many other parts of the world. I haven't done too much traveling, but it's breathtaking. And just the topography, how it changes from the north to the south is also such a beautiful experience to see. Driving, a couple hours changes everything entirely. The weather is fantastic for most of the year. It does get very hot in a lot of places, so you got to make sure that you do stay hydrated. It's a very healthy community. A lot of healthy eating and vegan, vegetarian options are becoming increasingly popular. The food is incredible. Very nice people. You got to get to know people a little bit. There is a stigma attached to Israelis where they're onions, where you got to get through the layers to them, but they're awesome. I love them so much. There's a very welcoming community. I've never experienced any, negativity there from anybody of any background. I can only share from my experience, but I feel like it's very welcoming and it's a great place to visit, whether you're a tourist, whether you're Jewish or not, or just want to check out a new country and culture.
Yeah. I've heard very good things about the nightlife too, which, I definitely would want to experience once I get there. I'm always interested in the music, the food, and the people. I think I haven't visited too many places where the people aren't friendly, but certainly there's places I've been where they're friendlier than others, and that happens whether you're inside the U.S. or outside. I went to Ireland, the nicest people I've ever met for the most part. So looking forward to getting that off my bucket list. It's high on the list of countries I've never been to. Where have you not been to that you'd like to get to travel wise?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, other places in the Middle East I definitely want to visit. I've never been to Egypt. I've never been to Dubai, the UAE. Those are places up there that I definitely want to go. And I've been to Asia once or twice, but I definitely want to check out some more countries out there like Japan, Laos, and definitely Australia and New Zealand as well. So those are kind of like the main areas once things get better in the world that I want to visit, in the near future.
Yeah, all good places. I haven't been to Australia or New Zealand, but it's on our list. We have my wife has a pen pal in Australia.
Nice.
And we're hoping to visit at some point. She came all the way over for our wedding last year.
Wow.
We're going to return the favor and get out there. My brother did Australia, New Zealand for his honeymoon many, many years ago and did some base jumping in New Zealand. I don't know. Not for me, but
sounds fun.
Yeah, if you like that kind of thing, I think it's a pretty awesome experience. Let's talk about your background. How did you get to what took you to Maccabi USA? Where'd you start? What were you doing and how'd you end up there?
So I was always involved in sports, for quite a while. Like when I was an undergrad in college, I was a student manager for the basketball team. And then in grad school, I worked in the student academic section, did some tutoring and helping kids out with their study habits, and got a master's in sports management. And while I was in grad school, I worked part-time for Maccabi USA through some other connections that I made. And then when I was graduating, they offered me a full-time position, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. So this is your one and only.
Mm-hmm.
And what college you go to?
Drexel.
Ah, Drexel. Nice. They used to have a good basketball team. I don't know how good they were when you were there, but they were good maybe a little bit before then, right? Malik Rose.
Malik Rose, yeah, back in the
Poor Malik.
90s. They've always, had on and off years, but this past year, 2021, they made it to the NCAA. So it was a great time to be a fan of the Dragons.
That's tough. The Big Five. They got some good programs out there. So, is basketball your favorite sport?
I would say it's probably my favorite sport to watch. Through work, I do a lot of work with soccer, and I've been able the last couple of years to experience it more and more, and appreciate it more and more. So I love working with soccer and doing everything there, but just watching basketball, nothing beats it to me.
What are we really good at the games?
Oof, that's a great question. We're good at a lot of things. Traditionally, we're really good at men's and women's basketball, women's soccer, swimming, track and field, some of the other individual sports, water polo. But every competition is different. We have different athletes to go every time, vice versa for other countries. Soccer is always an amazing tournament because you have so many teams in it. It's very strong competition. Same thing with futsal. Rugby is a very strong tournament. Ice hockey is very strong. Martial arts is very strong, especially judo. So there's a lot of great competition out there.
Futsal. I actually met someone who's heavily into futsal at a networking event inside Win Again Academy, the club room, and I'd never heard of it before. It's essentially just indoor soccer, correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that, but in a sense, it's a much smaller court, about the size of a basketball court, with a heavier ball and less people, but it's very similar tactics and strategy.
So what are some of the newer sports that are being, because we see stuff that gets introduced in the Olympics. I assume the games are not much different. We had surfing and skateboarding. I think is cornhole coming? I know breakdancing is coming in the next Olympics. So some pretty interesting sports, which I love to see. I love to see that. What do you guys have that's newer, and maybe what's on the way?
Yeah, so the organizers definitely pay attention to what the Olympics are doing, and they do add in sports they feel would be a good asset and a good part of the Maccabiah. So they are bringing 3-on-3 basketball. They are bringing BMX, surfing, skateboarding, rock climbing, and they were trying to bring in sailing, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. They're also bringing weightlifting back that hasn't been around for 20 to 30 years. So it's always great to see new sports involved and be able to get new people involved.
I'm in for 3-on-3. We just played a charity tournament at the Y. We lost in the finals, but it was a good effort. I wanted to go up to the tryouts. I know you guys had them, but I couldn't make it. But if you need a last minute substitution,
I know where to call.
I can make you. I can win some games for you guys. I know that. Have you ever played in the games? Did you know about it when you were playing? Were you active in sports as a participant?
No, I wasn't much of an athlete growing up, just a sports fan in general. And I didn't know about the organization or the games until I was in college. So it's always something that we strive for to get the word out across the country. And we also contend with some misperception, a little bit of branding and marketing with the JCC Maccabi games, because people think that it's one and the same, but they are different, even though we're partner organizations. So just awareness and opportunity is something that we always work for across the country. And a lot of people think that we're only, an East Coast or a Northeast organization, but we're a national organization. So we try to find the best athletes we can from all across the country. And when we have people from, New Mexico and Denver and Seattle and Kansas City and in smaller communities, it's great to see, how many people we can get in touch with.
Yeah. I mean, Jewish people in general get a bad rap for their athletic ability. There's been some great Jews in the history of sports. Sandy Koufax comes to mind, and there's a few others. Are there any big names that people might know of that have participated in the games?
Yeah, past alumni include Dolph Schayes, who's in the NBA Hall of Fame, Olympic swimmers, Garrett Weber-Gale, Anthony Irvin, Jason Lezak, Lenny Kraselberg, Mish Gaylord from gymnastics, and the list goes on and on.
How about celebrities? Do people? You talked about some of them get involved. Is there entertainment? What can I see if I'm at the games outside of the actual competition, as to make it an experience? And are there celebrities that come, because there's certainly a ton of Jewish celebrities?
Sure. So the opening ceremonies is probably, right up there with Israel Connect. That's a highlight for everybody. Everybody's in a massive stadium. It's going to be Teddy Stadium in Jerusalem. So you're marching in with 10,000 other people from across the world. And then, a full capacity stadium cheering everybody on. And then there's entertainment, before and after the marching with different Israeli musicians, leaders, political figures, etc. So that's a really highlight there. The organizers, I believe, try to bring in, Americans and other Jewish, musicians and celebrities from time to time. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then there's also a closing ceremony. It's a little bit more formal, but they still bring, great entertainment and value to everybody. And it's like the last hurrah before everybody leaves and, goes back to their, real life. And then in between, when competitions are happening, they also have a lot of activities, tours, things like that for participants to partake, to really, learn about the city they're staying in or the location they're in or the area. So there's three main parts in Israel that we're going to be in: Haifa, Netanya, and Jerusalem. So the organizers want to take advantage of those areas and show the participants in those areas like what that city and region can offer as well.
Or do we have the biggest delegation outside of Israel?
By far. We are, I believe I said 1,200 or so, maybe more. I'm not sure what the next largest visiting delegation will be. Possibly Great Britain or Argentina, who are in the high, hundreds. I'm not sure if anyone else gets up to 1,000.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I assume that bodes well for the success that we have in the competitions.
Yeah, the more participants we are, the more value it brings, and the higher level of competition. It just increases everything all around.
And for regarding being in the team, we talked about qualifications. We actually are tomorrow morning early. We have Tamir Goodman on the show, who is famous for being a basketball player and being Jewish back in the, I guess it was
Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland, but it was at the 2000s. I think it was in the 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s.
He was younger than I am. I think I was already in college before he got there. But he lives in Israel now. So is it where you were born? What's the qualifications for that? Who you play for?
You either, for our eligibility wise, you have to be a U.S. citizen or have a green card. So it doesn't matter where you were born, as long as you have one of those two and then identify as Jewish and are not practicing another religion, then you would be eligible for consideration.
And do you have any instances where people are playing for sort of a different country? Because you see that in the Olympics sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I say maybe if they have dual citizenship.
Oh, yeah. Like we have people who will make aliyah, like they'll move to Israel to try to qualify for their Olympics, become Israeli citizens, and then they'll compete for Israel at the Maccabiah if they're going to participate. And then we also get a lot of athletes from your area, from South Florida, who may have, dual citizenship with a Latin American country, and they may choose to play for the Latin American country, even though they live in the U.S.
Are these games televised? I don't recall them being televised.
There wasn't too much media previously, but it's going to be changing. There's going to be a lot more media and publicity and radio this time around. I don't know the specifics to it just yet, but it's going to have a much more broad appeal across the world. It's not going to be on like NBC. One day that would be amazing. But last time it was on JLTV, and I believe that it's going to be growing from there as well.
And maybe streamed. This day and age, the games can be streamed.
That it will be for sure.
Yeah, I would think it could. There's so many games out there. Obviously, this is important to us. All right, we're Jewish. If you're not Jewish, it might be a tough sell. I don't know. It's not like if you're looking at the Olympics, even if it's a Special Olympics you want to do for for a cause. So competition, it's got to be good, compelling to get people to want to tune in. And it sounds like the games are. So hopefully we'll see that soon. Maybe 2025 on on more regular TV. Maybe it's on Netflix. I don't know. Maybe you stream them on Netflix.
That's the goal.
Who's in charge of that? What's your job? I just never asked what your job specifically is there.
So as the program director, I oversee, a number of our sports and a number of our committees and operations in the organization, and then working with our volunteer leadership for plan of action on how that sport or event, should unfold, and then put it in action.
And what's the goal? I mean, from where you're sitting, what's a goal that you look at for the games, and then maybe moving forward for the game?
I mean, my goal is always increasing participation. There's a lot of sports have, a cap, like we can't bring more than 12 on a basketball team. But there's other sports that we haven't met full capacity in a while, or we have the ability to bring more people. So it's always getting more and more people involved, and either as a volunteer position as well. So we have people who are volunteer managers on the ground with us who will help with logistics and other needs. So getting people in that way is also something that we try to strive for. Another goal would be just getting more representation from across the U.S. So I said that, we have a misconception that we're Northeast only. So I always do a lot of outreach on the West Coast, really trying to increase our applicant pool and awareness in LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Vegas, Phoenix, and other places, because I really want it to be a more, geographically diverse delegation. But we're not going to take somebody from a certain area just because they live there. We're going to still take the best athletes we have.
And what sports are we lacking in? What sports do we need more participation in?
We could use endurance sports is the biggest one. We have unlimited spots there. So anybody who does triathlon, cycling, velodrome is a new sport. So we want to get track cyclists on board. Same thing with half marathons. Any runners out there should sign up. We always looking for athletes in volleyball, martial arts, racket sports. So squash, badminton, tennis. Those are the main sports that we have a lot of spots available to fill.
The triathlon, is that Olympic length?
It was previously, but because of health and safety issues, they've made it a sprint triathlon, so it's a smaller version this time.
And my brother's a endurance athlete, and he just ran his first full Ironman. He's done a few half Ironman. I was gonna say maybe he's got 4 kids, so I don't know if he can just go there for 3 weeks. But I always want to plug it when I can. He is now started the Same Here endurance team. So nice. Same Here is the global mental health movement. He used to ride and run for Fuck Cancer, which is a great cause, as we know, but mental health is another great cause. So beautiful hat here. Same Here endurance. I'll have to see if he knows anyone who might be able to participate in the endurance events.
Yeah, that'd be great. And as a side note, for the Masters, they don't have the same time commitment that the younger participants do. So they're only required to be in Israel for their competition. So it's our preference that they're there for 2 weeks, but if they can only be there for a couple of days, let's say they're a triathlete and they have 1 day of competition, if they're in Israel for just a couple of days, that's the minimum they need.
And what's the age groups for some of these events?
So we have 4 primary divisions, but not all sports are offered at all divisions. So we have U16, U8, which is 15, 16, U18, which is 17, 18-year-olds, Open, which is roughly 19 to 35, and then Masters, which is roughly 35 and up. But there's some nuances and differences between a couple of sports.
So it's, U16, you say 15, 16. You have to be at least 15 to participate?
You have to be 15 by the end of the calendar year. So you could be 14 during competition, but you have to be 15 by the end of the year.
Trying to do the math to see if my nephew can qualify. He's pretty good at the sprint triathlon game, and got on the podium the other day in Jersey. I'll have to talk to them about that, see if that's something they can do. So endurance is something you're lacking. What else?
So endurance, swimming in certain levels, like Masters swimming over the age of 35, we can bring a lot more there. Tennis for all age groups, other racket sports, so squash, badminton as well. Martial arts, we're taking karate, judo, taekwondo, And then, if someone visits our website, MaccabiUSA.com, you can see what sports we offer and submit an application right then and there.
No pickleball?
That's funny you say that. A lot of people have been advocating for pickleball for months, but the organizers will not be including that in this time around. It may be an exhibition of some sorts, but not an official sport. But we're working on increasing our pickleball community. We're working to have a event in Florida in the spring, and then we're hoping to have pickleball included in the next games either in 2023 or 2025.
I
But
was going to say,
paddleball is making a big push. Paddleball will be included.
If you want to get a big delegation of Jews who qualify in the Masters division, I would think pickleball is it. And there's some real fierce competition. I mean, I know some players who are around my age. I'm late 40s, and they're intense with their pickleball and very good competition. So
absolutely,
hopefully it becomes a sport. Just another sport we can dominate. Is it big around the world? I know it's big in the U.S. Is it gaining traction around the world?
Yeah, it's gaining traction in certain communities. I think that's one of the holdups is that to making sure that there's enough participation, and it's a little late in the process, for the most part. But give it a couple of years, and I'm sure it's going to grow, everywhere.
Are they? That's another thing to talk about, the competition. Like you look at some of the events in the Olympics, and it's just dominated by, like, say, one or two teams. I don't want to see that. If I'm in an Olympic type games and these type of competitions, I don't want to see one or two teams that are always going to dominate. And I know that going in that they're going to win. It's kind of good to see the men's basketball lose in the Olympics, and to see some other teams go out there and have a shot. What sports are there that need better competition from more countries?
Well, certain tournaments always do really well by us. So like baseball, we usually do very good. And, it's hard, there's certain people that quote unquote get left at home because their country doesn't have enough funding or resources to bring them to the games. So we're always looking to try to find ways to not leave people at home, whether it's from the U.S. standpoint or another country standpoint. Our men's basketball, as you said, does very well. Women's soccer, we do very well. And, every tournament is different. So you have different people and different athletes all the time. So it changes year to year. But for the most part, I would say, off the top of my head, those are three tournaments that, we do really well every time. That, competition level is a little bit less than what we would hope for.
Yeah, I mean, we're also very privileged and lucky at being in the United States of America that we have enough people and organizations with the disposable income to help support a venture like this. Is there any help for countries who might not be able to do that?
Yeah, so the organizers in Israel, they will help financially some countries that don't have those resources, and they'll also ask more affluent countries like us and other English-speaking countries, to an extent, to do some additional fundraising, if possible, for some small communities to go. So there's always a push to help other countries that need those resources.
What does fundraising look like? I mean, I know you have some events, but how do you raise funds? Are you just ask and say, hey, we need support? Or are you selling stuff? Are you, I don't know, there's 50-50 raffle. I mean, there's so many different ways. What have you guys found to be successful fundraising?
We do a lot of things. Like we do a lot of direct mail throughout the year, a couple of times that way. That's more of a general sell. We do social media campaigns, especially during, Thanksgiving on Giving Tuesday in that time period. And then we also have a very, thorough and invested development committee that will have a strategy to come up with new ideas for general fundraising, plus for specific fundraising for certain people or groups or businesses based off of what they're trying to fundraise for. So it's a combination of all of that.
Yeah, I know it probably sounds selfish, but I always gravitate towards stuff that gives me something. So like if I buy this hat for $40 and I know 20 of it's going to pay for the hat and 20 of it's going to the organization, I'm more inclined to do that than just say give $40 to an organization. Plus, also knowing where the money's going, you get a lot of that problem with whether it's for all types of disease research or Red Cross. People want to know where that money is going.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any idea what if I give $100, where does that go?
The donor can designate where the money gets applied to, whether you want to be, let's say, general donation or specifically for an event or a person or a program or anything like that. And we do campaigns from time to time where if you give at a certain level, you get a piece of apparel or a pin or a plaque or this or that. So we really try to cater it to the donor's liking and what they want to, support with.
Yeah. What is there some kind of record for what someone fundraised? I know there's got to be some healthy competition between teammates and sports and all of that.
I don't know if there's a record on how much like an athlete has raised. Like a lot of athletes will raise the full financial commitment. So for our U16, U18, and Open, the financial commitment is $8,500, and a lot of athletes will raise that through phone calls and emails to friends and family and businesses and get that amount. And then a lot of guys will, or not guys, but like a lot of athletes will go above and beyond that so that they can help their teammates and help their sport and things out. So we always, there is a healthy competition that way if people want to help each other out to keep fundraising after they meet their minimum goal.
What does that get? What does that include? 8,500. That's your cost.
Yeah.
An athlete. What does that entitle me to?
That includes everything for your trip. So you get airfare, you get registration, you get ground transportation, you get meals, you get hotel, you get apparel, you get insurance, everything. The only thing it doesn't include is domestic travel. So let's say you're an athlete from Chicago. We only have flights out of New York and Los Angeles. So they would have to get to one of our airports, but then the round trip flight to Israel is included.
Wow, that's a pretty good deal. How many people struggle? Do you have an idea of how many people have to pay out of their own pocket when they're participating?
A lot of people do pay out of their own pocket because they can afford it, or they'll do a combination of fundraising and personal payments. And we also do have scholarships available. We have scholarships for need. So athletes need to provide documentation and give an explanation on why they're applying and why they should be given a scholarship. And we also have a scholarship for merit. So exceptional athletes, based off of a criteria we came up with, if they fall within there, they can get some money that way to help increase, more elite athletes to join us.
How close to the level of competition for the U.S. do you think you are relative to the competition that could be? Let's say like people don't never heard about it or can't do it. They're just, are there a ton of people out there who probably could be a part of this and are better than what you guys are sending over there? Do you have any idea what that looks like?
I have no idea figure wise. I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that, have no idea that we exist, that, it's hard for us to get the wording out to them that may not even know that they're eligible. I think that's, very hard to gather. But for the people that do apply and try out and that we're aware of, we'll get people who are very high level that have to drop out after they're appointed, whether it's for financial reasons or personal reasons or scheduling conflicts or injuries or whatnot. In that regard, isn't too many, but we always leave a handful of people at home because they can't go for one reason or another. So we always have room for improvement every time.
And the basketball, I'll say basketball and baseball just because that's the easiest. Who are the people that make up that team? Are they college people who played in college? Are they just people who probably could have played in college but didn't? What's the level of competition for those more competitive sports?
So baseball is only offered at the U18 division. So it's a lot of very high level club players and school players that will be playing in college Division 1 or 2 for the most of them. And then in terms of basketball, for our open men's team, which is 18 and up, the bulk of them are currently collegiate players, and the bulk of that are Division 1. And we do get the occasional, professional or semi-pro playing in Europe or elsewhere. And then for the younger teams, it's very high level club and travel athletes that will be playing in college.
Yeah, I wonder. It's hard to get the information out there to people. There's so many good. I play basketball, on the streets wherever I've been, and there's been everywhere I go. There's some incredible players who probably just no one ever noticed or they just never had the opportunity to. So it's interesting the level of competition to the people. Even though you look at the Olympic athletes, there's people who are probably better than those people who were competing in the Olympics, and they never even had the means to get to the qualifications. Maybe they're too old. Who knows what the reasoning is? But there's so many good athletes out there that nobody's ever heard of or seen. That this is a great platform for people to do, whether it's the Olympic Games, whether it's the Maccabi games. I know there's all different types of games across the country. There's some Birmingham games. I don't know. There's so many. Now that I'm in the event world, I'm hearing about all these games that are going on that I never even heard of. That it's tough. Do you have some scouting? I mean, obviously you have some open tryouts, but is there any scouting out there for to try and find people?
We have a lot of volunteers and leaders across the country, and whenever possible, we ask them to go to see certain events or certain people. But of course, it depends on the sport that they're, have an expertise in. So if someone's a swimmer, we're not going to go ask them to scout a baseball player because they might not know like one thing or this thing or that thing or whatever. So it is challenging to get, that ability out there. But our biggest resource for scouting would be the JCC Maccabi games, because those athletes age out of that and into us. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to have it the last 2 years because of COVID, but it will be coming back next summer. So we do have representation there to scout out athletes, make an awareness of Maccabiah and what we're working on moving forward, and then having a lot of leaders in different sports attend and scout athletes that they want to recruit to actually play with us as well.
Yeah, if I'm let's say I'm going to the games next summer, I can only watch one competition. What are you recommending I watch?
I would say ice hockey. Like just seeing ice hockey in the desert, it's so much fun. USA and Canada typically are 1 and 2, and they hash it out at every level. But Israel's getting a lot better, and then we also have a team from Europe that attends on occasion, and they're getting better as well. But just seeing USA and Canada fight it out in the rink in the desert, such a cool experience.
And that's men and women. The USA have a very good women's team, correct?
Women have not participated previously, but we are planning and hopeful that there will be a women's tournament this time around, and all signs point that it will happen and that there will be 3 teams in the tournament.
Oh yeah, I have my friend Jackie. She's heavily involved in some of it's puck ball hockey. I don't know. I forget the term for it. Mm-hmm. It's not a puck, it's a ball, but she's very heavily involved in women's hockey and some tournaments. So I'll have to get her in touch with you. And they got some really good teams, some really good high quality teams in the U.S. for all kinds of hockey. So I'll have to get that. When you watch the Olympics, are you a winter or a summer guy?
I'm more of a summer fan, because not because of work related reasons. For the winter games, I love to see the new the last few games, snowboarding and the more extreme sports. But the ice hockey there is awesome to watch. But for summer, I love watching basketball, soccer, and what was the last one? Oh, swimming. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, swimming is. I feel like the track and field was without Usain Bolt. It felt like it wasn't as must see TV for me. I don't know why. We have next week we have a Canadian Olympian sprinter on the show, but I'll have to ask him what his feeling was. But for me, it just seemed the Olympics were a little bit weird to begin with, right? It's not in the same year. It's for you to say the games are in 2022. It's got to be weird. You guys are used to an odd year, right? I mean, that's part of it. And then you say, it was supposed to be this year and now we move it back. So there's probably a little bit of weird times going on is for people who are participating and organizing and watching. Well, I guess not so much watching, but organizing and watching.
And it was going to be a really great marketing campaign for 21st Maccabiah in 21, but it didn't happen for obvious reasons, but we're making the best of it, and it's still going to be a really awesome event.
21 and 22. It's got a great ring to it. What if you could play in any sport? What would it be? What would you have liked to play in? Let's say you were good. Obviously you have to be competitive enough to go. But what would you like to participate in? What was a game that you would be like, this would be fun?
I would think rugby. Rugby just is so physical. Guys are at the top of their physical abilities. It's very, tough to play, and you get better as you get older. I think, if I was, bigger and faster and stronger, like rugby would be a really fun sport to play.
Yeah, the U.S. there's going to be a rugby league in the U.S., so I think it's gaining some traction. There's a few rugby teams collegiately.
Mm-hmm.
You see that that gets on maybe NBC Sports, I think. I'm not really sure, but I think I've seen it there.
Mm-hmm.
How about representing the USA delegation? If you could pick a celebrity, one athlete, and then one non-athlete, who would you pick? As a Jewish person to represent the USA.
That's a really great question. The first person that came to mind was Adam Sandler, because there's been a lot of news about how great he is in basketball.
Right.
I'd love for him to play Masters basketball with us. And if he really is as good as everyone says, he would make the team, no doubt. We have a lot of great basketball at all levels, but having somebody like Adam Sandler join us in any capacity would just be phenomenal and so cool. And just having him, seeing him in that uniform would be, the creme de la creme. In terms of like an athlete or somebody who hasn't been involved previously, I would actually, this is an outside of the box answer, but I'm a wrestling fan, so I'd love to see Bill Goldberg, come out and do something. And I think there's been attempts to him previously, but never worked out. But he's such a strong and physical guy. Having him participate in something would be so cool.
Yeah, I was even talking about just being on the sidelines, not necessarily Bill Goldberg. Man, I haven't heard his name in wrestling is huge now. He's kind of been out of the spotlight a little. Sandler would be great. I guess the first part of it is you said there's been some conversation with Bill Goldberg. Has anyone reached out to Adam Sandler?
I think there's been attempts to get to him through other means but not successful. And, when we try for certain people at times and other things then come up, it kind of gets pushed to the wayside. But whenever we learn of a connection to a celebrity or an influencer of some sorts, we do try for it as best as possible.
Yeah, if I was Adam Sandler, why wouldn't I want to go spend a week or two in Israel and really get to be a part of it? I don't know. Obviously, schedule permitting, that's a big thing. And with you guys being once every 4 years, and it's this time, it's not like, hey, you can participate and you can say when you want to participate. But I don't know. I would think he would want to get involved from whatever I hear about him. So it might be the last question of the show that we get to. You might have a similar answer. Who are the four best? Who's the Mount Rushmore of Jewish athletes? Do you know for you that you know of, or are there anyone that people generally know about?
That's a great question. Two that come to mind automatically are Dolph Schayes and Sandy Koufax. And then the last couple would definitely be up for discussion. There's so many great swimming Olympians, Mark Spitz, Lenny Kraselberg, etc., and then people from so many other sports. But I would say at minimum, what did I just say? Sandy Koufax and Dolph Schayes, absolutely.
Yeah. Koufax was that just an answer on Jeopardy we were watching last night. It was initial, so they did SK and they were talking about his career. It's love Jeopardy. Where's I always say when I say it wrong, the Maccabi games? Do they ever get mentioned or out in like pop culture? Is it like do you see people mentioning it out elsewhere that you just kind of hear people talking about it that you didn't even know about, and people send you some, hey, they talked about the Maccabi games on Jeopardy was an answer, or it was in this show or a movie. Do you ever get that?
The one thing I remember, there was actually no, I'm not even going to start going on this road because there was some movie where Survivor, that's what it was. One of the first contestants who won it, Ethan Zahn, is a participant of ours, and when he was on Survivor back in the early 2000s, he was wearing Maccabi USA t-shirt, and we get people who mention it from time to time, but that's the only pop culture reference that I'm really truly aware of.
Oh, that's pretty good. Look, I people who participate in these games, they're very, very proud.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the games, if you're an Iron Man, I mean, you walk around and my friends and my brother, you almost can't get that stuff off of them. So it's a very good brand, very good branding for people to walk, and they're proud of the. It's an accomplishment. It's no easy task to make a team and then do
Mhm.
well in it. No, it's hard enough to even just say if you came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to be there," not everyone can just do it, right?
Mhm.
You can't drop everything out of your life and give up, the time to get there. Not to mention whatever time you have to do to training if it's not your like most of these people aren't professionals, right? They're playing on the basketball team, but they're not being paid to play basketball, so they probably have other jobs and they got to find time to practice and train. It's not easy. So when you do accomplish it, I think it's definitely something that you should be proud of and wear proudly.
I mean,
Uh,
it is a big commitment for everybody that goes. Like, it's a solid year, if not more, depending on when you're appointed. If you are, let's say this past summer, if you were an athlete who tried out for a team, so you have to train for the tryout, you have to make the team, and then continue your training for the next year. And then in that time, you have to do your studies or your work, depending on your age. And then you also have to get your finances in order, whether you're paying for it, you're fundraising for it. There's different forms we need to get in, etc. And then you have to play the best of your ability during that tournament. So it's very we understand that it's a commitment, and we appreciate everyone that joins us.
yeah, it's. I wish I would have known more about it growing up. I probably would have wanted to get more involved or try it out. Definitely would have been something, just even to the competition, but to be able to get over to Israel. I'm almost not embarrassed, but I feel like 45 years old. I should have been in Israel already. I will get there. It's on my list, and I will get there. But so you've been with the game since you first started. If you ever decide to leave, what would you be doing? What would you want to do?
I mean, I love to stay in the sports industry to some extent, and just working and meeting people from different backgrounds and communities is my favorite thing. So if I can continue working in the operations involving sports and international relations and community building, and that's really what I love to do.
Yeah. What's two more questions and then we'll let you out of here. What's one thing that you want people to know about the games that they might not know about? I know you talked a little bit about that earlier, but if you have one thing that you could say about the games that you want to educate people with today, what is it?
I would say that's not just for well, for lack of a better term, it's not just for rich people. Like, there's a stigma attached that is just for people who are affluent and can afford it. It's for everybody. And if long as you are make your team and you put the effort in to get your ducks in a row in order, you will go and you'll have the same experience as everybody else. You just need to give it a shot and try.
Okay, that's good. I probably felt that same way as I had heard it growing up too. So definitely good information to have. We'll let you out of here in the same question we let everyone go, and you might already have said the answer. I don't know, but you can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them or really have hung out with them before. Who are you going to choose, and what are you guys going to do? And we're taking tabs. We're trying to do outreach for everyone who every one of our guests haven't been successful yet, but we will get there. Some people have some very attainable answers. I don't. You should go as far out there as you want. But who would it be, and what are you going to do?
Um, I'm going to keep going down the road of being a wrestling fan. I would say Vince McMahon. He
Okay.
seems like such an awesome guy that you would want to pick his brain and hear stories from what we would do. You know, Pretty much, I just want to hang out, regardless of wherever it is, and just talk to him and hear about his career.
That would be the first time for Vince McMahon. I got man. He's built such an empire. It's crazy, and so we'll put him on the list. We'll do some outreach. I know some people who work close to Vince McMahon. I'm not going to make any promises. I'm certainly going to ask for it. If it was up to me, I would ask anyone I know. I have no shame in that way. But
Thing, yeah.
we rely on other people to ask other people to ask other people. It becomes a little bit more difficult. But Vince McMahon is on the list. We're going to do what we can to make it happen. Maybe some event. I don't know. Maybe some local Maccabi event. Who knows? We're going to try and make it happen. But check out MaccabiUSA.com, Twitter and Instagram. The games are next July in Israel. They need your support. Go to the website and find out how you can help. Maybe there's an athlete that you want to support. Maybe there's a sport that you'd like to support. Whatever it is, they're happy to have it. Steve can answer any questions. Website has all the information. Really appreciate your time today. Looking forward to seeing how the games play out. And as I said, being involved personally and with Ticket Time Machine, I'm hoping. Tune in tonight if you haven't registered for our event, 7 p.m. Eastern. Win Again Academy and Ticket Time Machine, sports and entertainment networking. Going to be a great event. Check out my LinkedIn post for registration information. We got Tamir Goodman, 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning on the Wolff Den. Have a great night, and we'll see everybody soon.